Now, the Super Mario series is almost as old as time itself, being around for more than 30 years in total. And all these games have one thing in common: the lives you have matter, because when you run out, you're in trouble. So of course, people started to come up with ways to get a ton of one-ups, said they would never see that dreaded game over screen again. And so a lot of tricks have popped up over the years to do so. Now, we will get to the history of it all later in a classic evolution of video, but today we will look at the top 5 craziest ones seen throughout time. Number 5. In the series, there are a couple of enemies that keep returning in almost every game, like the classic Goombas and Koopa Troopas. These are part of Bowser's army every time, so you see them a lot in 2D as well as 3D games, in almost every level imaginable. And so people started to wonder, can we do something with these ordinary foes that no one normally even cares about? Well, yes. Apparently, there's one little trick that works so incredibly well that you can get maximum lives in no time. And to pull this trick off, you only need one enemy, the Koopa Troopa. And there's one special thing about these weird creatures that makes it all possible: their shells. In the very first game we can see this. It was seen from the very first game onward in 1985. When going through World 3-1, you will come across a staircase where 2 Koopas are coming down. And all you care about is one of these Koopas because it can be used for a one-up trick. If you use the stairs together with it at least. All you need to do is get in on one of the steps and position yourself in a very specific way. When you jump, you should be able to hit the shell. Then it will bounce the other way and hit the stairs. And then it comes back, and you should be there to catch it once again, and then you can do it infinitely. As soon as you have this set up, which isn't too hard, you can just let go and the shell will do the work for you. It's infinitely trapped there, and after kicking it back and forth like this for 8 times, you will start to collect those sweet one-ups until you can't have any more. And to be honest, this is quite easy to pull off, making it an excellent way of getting an unlimited amount of it all. But this isn't even all, because this glitch can be used in almost every Super Mario game as long as there's a Koopa Troopa and a place to get it stuck in. Jumping on them gives you points after all, and as soon as you have enough of them, you will get those sweet one-ups. So give it a shot, because it's quite useful. Number 4. Now, while our previous trick is fun and all, it's not that crazy. When looking at it, you can understand how it works for the most part right away. So that's not too exciting. But luckily enough, players started to come up with even easier and crazier methods. And this kind of started with Super Mario Bros. 3, where a bunch of new enemies were put in handy places of certain levels. Yet again, this is seen in World 3, because there are a couple of things in this level that work really well together. This time around, we won't be using a Koopa Troopa, but actually a Lakitu, because he can also help us out here with his very special attacks. Now, when entering the level, you will have to run a little bit, so you can get to the spot where this enemy is found, and pick it up. As soon as you see him, he will follow you constantly, and harass you with its Spiny Eggs, which turn into normal Spinies who try to take you out. Now, when it follows you, all you need to do is walk back a little until you see 2 wooden blocks with a platform in between and a pipe above. As soon as you're there, you need to get your hands on a Koopa Troopa shell and throw it in between those 2 blocks. Now, you use this to take out enemies, of course, and it can do this rather fast, with you getting points every time any of them fall. So you probably understand by now how the trick works. You're using the Spiny Eggs in the shell to get unlimited one-ups in no time. It will just go back and forth with the Lakitu doing the same while throwing down those point-yielding eggs, missing you every time but not the Koopa shell. It works perfectly and is yet again really easy to pull off. When it comes down to it, it's even more brain dead than the last one, because as soon as it's set up, you just stand there and wait, doing nothing. So even if you can't find handy stairs in a Koopa Troopa, you can still make your life a lot easier by doing this little exploit. And really, anyone can do this, because it's just a shell going back and forth while you stand there doing nothing. Number 3. Now, so far we've only covered 2D games, and while there are a lot of tricks to get a mind-boggling amount of lives in those games, 3D titles also give the player some options. And now we finally get the tricks that look quite funny and odd, as well as confusing at times, because some I can't explain at all, but I will try to do my best. we will be looking at Super Mario Galaxy 2, an amazing game to be honest. And here there's a little exploit we can do in the supermassive galaxy in the level Huge Trouble with Big Wigglers. Here everything is gigantic and we yet again have to make our way to one specific enemy that will help us build up those precious points for 1-ups. In this level, there's one specific section near the start where there are 3 gigantic Koopa Troopas who are walking in circles on some sort of disk planet. I'm not exactly sure what it is. And as you can imagine, these gigantic critters will be very useful. Because yet again, when you jump on their precious shells, you gain more lives. However, this time around things work quite differently because they are so big and therefore are very tough compared to the normal ones. So instead of jumping on it to force the creature inside of its shell feeling terrified so you can shoot it around like a pinball, we just jump on it a bunch. Because if Mario lands on top of one of them, they will actually just continue walking. But apparently you do get points for it, even though the game doesn't really show this. So by just jumping on it and making sure to move forward with them every time you do a bounce, you can get a ton of extra lives. Although this time it's a bit harder to pull off compared to the previous 2. Clearly it looks a bit weird, but it does work really well. And yet again, the concept is still really similar to our very first trick. Number 2. Alright, now we get to tricks that kind of blew my mind when I first saw them, and I can't really explain how they work to be honest, because they're hella weird. And a great example of this is the way people get tons of lives in Super Mario 64 DS, where they introduce some new things that help players reach their goals. And those features weren't actually seen in the game for the N64. When going to the world Whomp's Fortress, you can use one little thing found in this level together with a new power-up to pull off this amazing trick. Somewhere higher up in the level, you will come across some brick blocks you can break, and inside one of these is a special super mushroom. Now, these aren't like the normal ones. Oh no. These are new in the DS version, and it basically has the same effect as the Mega Mushroom of later games. Like New Super Mario Bros. It temporarily makes your character gigantic, limiting you in some ways, like jumping, but you can destroy nearly anything in your path, so it's totally worth it. And the funny thing is, you will earn an extra life for every object destroyed from the 8th onward, which probably plays a role in this whole trick, although I'm not sure. As soon as you're powered up by it, you can teleport to another portion of the map by going into the corner to a plank you would normally just knock over to get to the other side. But if you knock it over from the side while being a giant, you can sort of position yourself to constantly hit it, and so you can get tons of lives. I'm not sure if this is really the case, but it does look like it, because as soon as you're small, the effect will stop instantly. And so using this, you can be filled up on 1-ups in a matter of seconds. It's literally one of the fastest ways to pull this off ever seen in the franchise. Number 1. Now for our very last one, we will take a look at Super Mario World, where you can also pull off a rather weird trick with amazing results. When going to Chocolate Island 5, you can find a certain section in the level you can mess with to pull off one of the most confusing and insane glitches ever seen in the game. Because at some point you will encounter a portion where there are a bunch of Spinies trapped in some sort of block prisons. And here you will also encounter a P-block, as well as some other blocks that aren't closed off. And these are very, very important to our trick. Now, you need to be sure that you have Yoshi with you, otherwise it will most likely not work as well. What you end up doing by the looks of it is jam the P-block in between some blocks, triggering them constantly with a Yoshi egg popping up every now and then, and this rewards you with 1-ups. I'm not sure how all of this works, since there's also a grey second P button involved somehow, and as you can see for yourself, it's very confusing. It seems like throwing it up into the blocks just gets it stuck there, giving you the reward over and over until the end of time. This is certainly very handy for players since you can completely exploit it. However, how it works is a bit of a mystery to me. But I did find one explanation for it. Also, little side note, there are more videos and playlists in the upper right corner, even more top 5 and top 10s, and also subscribe. Now let's continue. Apparently, the glitch is known as duplicating block, and it's explained as followed. mode. By throwing an enemy or object at a block very close to it, you can duplicate the block near it, giving you the item but leaving the original block untouched. And this works because of a difference between which tile is hit and which tile is activated. So it can be explained and is probably useful in more scenarios than just this infinite life trick, but still, it's quite complicated and confusing to an extent, and especially for me.